everyone. Welcome back to the Journey Management Playbook episode number 5 already. If you have been following along with the series, you know what is coming up. If you're new to this series and somehow landed on this episode without watching the prior episodes, there is a playlist. Make sure to check out the playlist. That's going to give you a lot more context about what you'll hear in this conversation. We are here to help you be more successful, more impactful with your journey management efforts. I'm doing this together with Tingting. Lynn, Tingting, what can we expect from this already?
Yeah, so in the last episode, we went through really how to start a journey, how to verify the journey and insights and everything very much into detail. So now we have a very good foundation and we're fully confident that we have a good starting point together with the AI. And now the next step is to really fill up the journey and to see how a good journey looks like, how a journey can be simplified and effective enough to have good journey management workflows. So in this episode, we are going to discuss the best practices to structure your journey, finally. And in other words, it means what should your journey look like to facilitate the smooth journey management workflow, like I just mentioned.
All right. Structuring your journey. Even though I've been in this field for I don't know how long, 15 years, probably even longer, I'm eating my own dog food. I'm also using journeys to improve the experience of my circle community. And recently I was working on the onboarding experience, the onboarding journey. And at some point I just got stuck. So it's really interesting. It was just too much. We will get into some of the details. We will just share our screen and show you the examples where I literally got stuck, got overwhelmed. So if you sometimes also get overwhelmed with your journey maps, then this series is really good because we are helping you to be more impactful, more effective in less time. That's our goal. That's our promise. Again, we are doing this in a playlist, in a series, in a longer sort of context. Every episode so far, Tingting, you've been on my side. For people who haven't sort of seen the previous episode, could you give us a brief intro of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Tingting Lin. I'm Principal Journey Management Coach at TheyDo. And TheyDo, you will see a lot about TheyDo today in the episode and in the previous episode already. But we are a journey management platform, and we are also providing best practices for companies, for enterprises to have the best practice of their journey management, leveraging different features of TheyDo as a platform.
And you mentioned that you are a journey management platform. I would say you are the journey management platform without exaggerating. So yes, we will be doing a lot of stuff in TheyDo, although the knowledge and the skills and the experience, the lessons that we share are probably transferable to any other tool that you want to use for your journey management efforts. But TheyDo just makes it so easy, so efficient. This is going to be a long video. There will be timestamps in the show notes, so you can fast forward or quickly switch back to a specific aspect. I would really encourage you to at least watch the episode from start to finish one time and then go back, because we are sharing things that build on top of each other and you want to have that context. But the timestamps are in the video. And the reason why we're doing these deep dives is there are already enough videos and tutorials and, presentations on journey management, journey mapping at a very high level, but nobody shows you the nitty-gritty details. That's what we want to do in this series. We are giving you knowledge that you probably will not see anywhere else. So that's why we're making and taking the time to really dive deep. Also, if you're listening to the audio-only experience of this episode, there are slides that show screenshots of where we are inside TheyDo and some other information. The slides, the link to the slides is available in the show notes as well. Tingting, did I forget anything that I should have mentioned at the intro?
Maybe just one addition. So in the end of each video, we are also publishing some short articles about it, about the practice itself. So we have the best practice section on TheyDo website, and myself, I will also be sharing it on LinkedIn. So stay tuned.
Yes, these episodes tend to get chopped up into other content forms, so keep an eye out for that. Tingting, are we ready to share our screens and just dive into what we shared today?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So you will be sharing your screen. Let me give some context about where we left off. So in the very first episode, we defined a business challenge. In this case, I run a business. I run a community for in-house service design professionals. That community is called The Circle. And as with many services, many subscription membership businesses, I want to increase my member retention, aka I want to reduce churn. That's the challenge that we're sort of tackling in this series. So far, we have generated a journey using the help of AI. We have verified and validated and enriched some of the content in that journey. But we still should consider this a first draft, a working prototype. Now, Tingting, you're already showing some stuff on the screen. We have experiences, steps, phases, insights. Where would you advise me as a business owner to look into next?
Yeah. So I'm currently showing you a view where we left off. And then now I'm showing you what else can we have in a full journey as well. So here now, let me show the whole journey. If we look at everything, well, work a journey like fully in the workflow, working in the workflow would look like this. So we start with the insights and from the research, and we understand the experience layer of our customer. What else? So next step, we need to dive into the actionable contents of our journey, start planning, prioritizing, and also tracking our action. And what does that mean? That means we need to have also the quantitative data side by side with the qualitative data. So it's not only showing how we are doing, but also giving us the KPI and target that we need to look up to. And then in addition, we need to have opportunities that are the problem statements reviewed from these insights. So these opportunities will help us to understand what kind of problems are we going to address and how do we prioritize these problems and opportunities. And further, of course, we connect everything into the solutions we are developing, we are implementing, and then we are going to be able to track the progress of everything. So that is basically how a journey would look like.
Nice. This still looks like a pretty, I wouldn't say simple, but not a super complex journey. I can imagine once you start going and you have more customers, more insights, more data, more teams, more departments, this can become very complete, right?
Exactly. So I was actually going to ask you, Mark. So does this journey, well, if I call this a journey that is fully ready for the workflow, does it surprise you somehow? Does it differ from the journey maps that you have been and all the other service designers have been familiar with for years?
Well, it surprises me to an extent that there isn't too much information in this overview. I see 4 phases. I see, I don't know, 5, 6 lanes. So it's quite like I said, a simple journey.
Exactly. So, in this episode, we are going to dive deeper into a structure of a journey and explain why it can be so simple. And we will go into both the lanes and also phases and steps to understand how an action bias journey should look like.
An action-biased journey. That sounds interesting. And
Yeah.
how would you describe other journeys that aren't action-biased?
I wouldn't say all journeys are not action biased, but let's look at what they currently are visualized.
Sure.
So I actually find an interesting way. So if I open not Google Drive, but a Google search. So if I search journey maps here, we will probably see how others are making journey maps. So if we go to images, now we can see different formats and different visualization, different structure of journey maps. And there's no standard, of course. And we are also not trying to impose a standard for you, but it just tells us how differently people are mapping journeys. And most of these journeys, if we take a rough look at it, it really focuses on the experience layer. It focuses on the story itself, how customers go through all the steps. And sometimes we do have action points, but they are not the most important map. So that's my at a glance understanding. And then there are a lot of details in these journey maps with different experiences, different channels and paths, probably. And the experience graph are very rich in a way. So this is, of course, good for us to understand the different paths of different experience. But then what I'm missing is really the focus of the action. Here, we have a very rich picture. It's good because hopefully that also comes from the research data. But then what's next? I feel they don't answer questions like, what's next? Of course, I'm not digging into each of them, but just to show you how diverse it can be in the journey maps. When you do it in Miro, you do it on a workshop, on a wall, it takes a lot of time. And of course, it can have a lot of inspiration for everyone. But then the question is still there. What's next?
Yeah. I feel that journey maps have been used in that shape or form for a very long time, where it's sort of a documentation tool, a visualization tool, and like you all also mentioned, inspiration, and then you leave it up to the viewer to decide, okay, what's next. So you present the journey almost as a objective reality, a representation of reality, and you try to capture as much as possible so that the other person who will be viewing, watching, analyzing the journey will need to make that translation themselves into, okay, what does that mean for me? Is that a correct assumption?
I would say yes, in most of the sense. But to be fair, well, in many of these journey workshops, we do see other stakeholders coming in, and they do feel like, oh, this is a good way to also understand our work from customer point of view. But then as the problem with a static is that it's very rich in experience again, but then the action is there, but then they're not tracked. They're not taken into real life afterwards. So although you have the stakeholders there, you have people get excited, motivated, you're not able to push it into the real impact. That is the problem. So that therefore we are here to discuss how should we make the journey map itself simplified enough for everyone to have a piece to take home, and then how can we help different stakeholders to get the most from the journey map instead of pushing everything, like you said, to let them interpret. So as service designers, we are not only owning the map, or the CX team or whoever is facilitating everything. They need to become the glue to connect the dots in the organization beyond the maps. So that is very important. And that's why also we need to make the journey maps simplified enough for everyone to understand, to take away, and to become their day-to-day go-to place.
Thinking, I've heard the phrase simplification is the ultimate form of sophistication. I think it was a famous Italian scientist. So when you say we need to simplify the map, that is actually a big, big challenge. Where do we start? How do we simplify? What do we know? How do we know what to let go of?
Yeah, so we will dive deep into that in terms of both the horizontal and vertical aspects of a journey. But before we go into all details, I would like to emphasize again, simplification means to have the most essential information for your stakeholders. So that sentence has a keyword, is stakeholders. So you need to understand who are interested in which part and who will own which action from the journeys. So then you need to understand, okay, I have a beautiful research. I have made a beautiful journey map. So now you're thinking, who are my customers? Who are my users of the journey map? Then thinking about different organization roles in your context. Who are the stakeholders in your journey management? So again, the journey mapping are probably can be owned by a core team, but then journey management is much broader and collaboration is needed from cross-functional teams. And that's why I often say journey management is for everyone, and it will be effective only when it reaches certain scope of stakeholders with a variety of roles. I'm not saying like it will only succeed when it impacts the whole company. It's of course a process, but then at least it needs to have cross-functional impact from the very beginning.
That's challenging. Yeah.
Very challenging.
How do we get there?
Yeah, and so just to wrap up about the whole the overview of the journey structure that we will be discussing about. So we want to transform from journey mapping to journey management, and then we first need to shift our mindset and focus from visualization of the map with all these different formats into the focus of workflow facilitation. So from visualization, from documentation towards the actions. And then it means to putting on a new lens with action bias and making every decision, I mean, the decision of how you structure your journey, what information to include based on a clear purpose. That is the stakeholders' needs as part of your workflow. And then let's start from this point to discuss how to simplify the lanes, phases, and steps, and see how an action-based journey should look like.
Yeah, so Tingting, before you continue, I'm going to recap this in my own words. And we've used the example of project management tools and to-do lists. So when I think of what you say, it's not just about capturing, for instance, all the to-do items that are on your plate, like trying to visualize, to capture, to make a long list of all the to-do items. The goal, really, the mindset is, okay, how do I get to the 3 next important steps that I need to take? Like, that's going to be your starting point, right? How do I figure out what are the 3 next important things on my list instead of how do I capture everything that I need to do?
Exactly. Yeah. And also think of the journey map as a living mechanism instead of static documentation.
Yeah, so, that has been a big challenge over the years.
Yeah, and then you can be reassured, okay, if I'm missing something, it's okay, I can add it later. But now let's focus on the most important thing.
All right. Sounds good.
Great. And Mark, I know you have a very good example to tell us also the evolution of your understanding on Simplify the Journey. So why don't we start with that?
Sure. Let's dive in. Which one do you want me to explain?
So you have the onboarding journey, like originally like this, and then we discussed how you get a little bit frustrated, where to start, where to end, and what kind of information should we include in a journey map. Can you elaborate
Yeah.
that a little bit?
So what you're seeing now on screen is a journey map that was initially started on a Miro board. And it's important to say that because on the Miro board, it was really a collaborative effort to trying out and seeing what type of information do we think is important, which type of information do we have. So we basically set the structure of the journey map in Miro and then try to translate that into TheyDo. So when you look at this, we have a lot of lanes. The lanes are really related to jobs to be done. We have a how lane. We have a front and backstage lane. We have steps. We have all sorts of cards that have different tags. If you look at the number of steps, I think, well, this isn't even everything, but 7, 8, 9 steps. And then when I was working with this map inside TheyDo, a lot of questions emerged. Like, okay, I have an insight over here and I have an opportunity over there. Should this go into be a good member lane? Which type is this actually? Should this go into the how or what? Like, by creating all these different lanes, I created a lot of new questions for myself that I had to answer with each and every insight, solution, opportunity. And that really slowed down the process because I'm working with this with other circle members to actually work on the circle experience, eating our own dog food. And we had to do a lot of coordination about, okay, what is it that we mean with the what lane? What goes into a what lane? How do we define that? What do we write down? So there was, we basically got stopped out at trying to first agree on what is it that should go into a map. You don't have that issue when you're doing this in Miro because everything is fluid, everything is flexible. Like you just move things around and just it's high level. But once you get down into the nitty gritty details, then you notice, shoot, this is probably too complex at the moment. Does that make sense, Tingting?
It's a very common process, actually, that I see also from different companies, different customers. So thank you for sharing. Typically, yes, a lot of core teams will start from outside of TheyDo, start from a workshop on the wall with Post-its or with Miro. Like you said, Mark, like with these tools, it's excellent for visualization and help you to see the holistic view, but soon you're lost in the details. And at a glance, because you can zoom in and out so easily in a static map, it looks like it's not a problem. I can always zoom out to see the big picture. However, the actions, the actual impact are hidden in the details. So, for example, when you mentioned that you're really defining what is the what lane, right? Because the what lane is something that some colleagues, some stakeholders should take action upon. And then it differs from a lane of learn and grow or a lane of be a good member and so on, because the learn and grow and be a good member are the insights that is giving input to these actions. And then, of course, you need to understand everything to connect the dots together and make decisions and prioritization on your next steps. So then at this point, you really need to zoom in into particular parts of the journey, and then it's really difficult with a static view, although it visualizes very well. Is it the case?
Yeah. What I noticed is, like, when you are working on a high level, like, nobody takes the effort or feels the need to really define what these lanes mean, how the cards should be defined. But when you actually start using it as a tool for improvement, for decision making, you do need to have those definitions. And the more variables you have, in this case in the form of lanes or in the form of steps, the more decisions you need to make up front. And that is, like, I think, a big challenge, and something that you have an interesting solution.
Great. And Mark, then based on that discussion, you also actually made a new version of this journey. Would you like to take us there?
Yeah, sure. We can quickly go over that. So this is the onboarding journey version 2.0. Even though it looks like there is more information on this map, it's actually more simplified. So what is simplified is the number of lanes we have and how we have defined our phases and steps. So we just have 5 or 6 lanes, and we stick to that. We have an insight lane, we have an opportunity lane, we have a solutions lane, experience lane. These are the default lanes inside TheyDo. And we said, okay, let's just stick with that for now. Let's just say that that is our baseline. And for the steps, in this case, you're looking at onboarding. So we have an 8-week onboarding period. And it was really tempting in the other map to actually map out all the small touch points, all the small interactions. Somebody logs into a website, they read an article, they watch a video, they send a invitation to somebody on LinkedIn. Like, we were really detailed. And now you just see, okay, week 6, somebody starts the week 6 guide. You could be, ooh, that's very high level. But we decided that if we need to have more details on week 6, that's going to be a separate journey. So this map, this experience, this journey for onboarding is simplified to the level that we feel, if we need more details, we'll dive deeper. But for now, if those details aren't necessary for us to make decisions, then we're not going to include them in this journey.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. And exactly, that is a journey that looks much actionable. And why is that? Because let's first look at the lanes. We have the metrics, the insights, opportunity, solutions, and then if necessary, we can add other lanes and also nested journeys. So then you immediately avoided one problem that you mentioned in the other journey. We don't have to debate about the definition of each lane, what to include there. And when we put information, we don't also need excessive decision points where to put which card, right? So it immediately makes life easier. And in the beginning, you can always have a simple starting point to contain almost all the information from the other map here. And then when you said, as you said, when we have more information, more insights, and we want to dig deeper, we can always create a nested journey under that to go into the details so we don't miss the big picture. So because, again, the big picture is not only about visualization, it is also about collaboration on the different levels. So if we talk about best practices, how to start with the lanes, I would like to remind us about the workflow that we believe would work in journey management. Let's take a look at that. So it is the triple diamond workflow, where we go through the problem discovery, solution discovery, and solution delivery. And from the building point of view, if we talk about different elements in TheyDo, we can map all these different building blocks in the whole workflow. So, for example, we start with the goals, and we can start collecting research insights according to our goal. And then we do the problem discovery. Of course, the journeys are started from here, and we have a shape of a journey. We have the phases and steps, and then the insights will review the different opportunities for us, and the opportunities are also mapped in the journey context. And then we go into the solution discovery diamond, and then we can go to check all our opportunities, understand the value of each opportunity, and prioritize them. So the outcome, as part of as the input of the solution discovery, we have prioritized list of opportunities, and then here we ideate solutions and also prioritize them in quite similar ways as the first diamond, but instead as an outcome we have a list of prioritized solutions that goes into the solution delivery. And by the way, the solution delivery looks like an additional diamond in to the double diamond workflow. But actually, what I've seen is the solution delivery is usually there in every organization. You have, for example, an agile process, you are using the SAFe framework and so on, and all these are about solutions. So we just need to connect the journey management workflow into your existing agile or development workflow here. And then the metrics will show us how are we progressing. And of course, the solutions status can also show us where are we in the journey. And then we finish this one iteration and can go back to review our goals and start a new circle of research to improve our experience and journeys. So keep this triple diamond workflow in mind, then we can understand what kind of information we need in a journey as the basic, as a simplified journey. Does it make sense, Mark?
Yes, it does make sense. Yeah, no, and these are the lanes by default in TheyDo. When you were sharing this, I was thinking like the beauty of tools like Miro or even the physical workshop and even TheyDo is that they give you so much flexibility that it's very tempting to start defining your own workflows, defining your own data types. Like you can make up anything and everything. At the same time, that's a big pitfall because you really have to know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing that. Probably you'll know from experience of creating, I don't know, dozens of different journey maps, what works for you, how you want to customize the process. But if you haven't done that yet, the flexibility is a big pitfall. And in that case, it's much better to sort of put on some guardrails, say, okay, this is the starting framework that has been quote unquote proven. It works in 95% of the cases. Let's just stick with that. Let's just try to fit our process into this framework. And if we need to customize, we'll do that later, but use this as a starting point. So that was going through my mind.
Yeah, very good. And in addition to that, so now we understand why the basic lanes of the journey are insights, opportunity, solution, metrics, right? And then in addition, there is also another aspect to it. You see these hands and different roles as example. Because with these different building blocks, usually you can find one or multiple roles that can own these building blocks. So then the lanes suddenly become meaningful for certain stakeholders as well. So for example, if you have a very granular lane like grow and learn, that's part of insight. And then every stakeholder would probably need to judge whether this is important for me.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to look at this or do I focus on something else? But then with a rather more high level but workflow related lanes, you're able to relate much better. Like as a development lead, I know I am leading the solution. I need to focus on the solution lane. I'm owning that lane to update the status of my teams or my solutions. But then I also need to collaborate with opportunity owners, because I need to understand why am I building this solution. And I can find the why in the opportunity lane. And then the journey tells me the context. So that makes it much easier for different stakeholders to make sense of the journey.
Yep, that makes sense to me.
Great. So let's come back to our I leave the circle journey again.
Yeah, so this is the offboarding experience or the churn experience or the whatever you want to call it. Somebody is leaving the community experience.
Yeah, so we have been working with this journey throughout our series. So then we are still using this as an example for a simplified journey. So again, you see these lanes. The metrics will tell us where are we and what are our targets. And then while listening to this or looking at this, you probably are already thinking, if I have a metrics lane, who would be the stakeholder? Who should I contact to get these data? Who need to update these data or help me set up the data pipeline, and who are looking at these data to check our progress, right? The same with insights. Well, the insights, we talked a lot about it in the past 2 episodes, but this is mainly the foundation and reflection of your research, what is going on in the field and with your customer. So the insights lane probably can be owned by the research team, but can be consumed by everyone, because that is the foundation. And then you probably will have opportunity and solutions with different stakeholders as well. They are making decisions and prioritization on different levels of the business. So the triple diamond also tell us there is a benefit to separate the problem space with the solution space, because we first need to understand the problem and opportunity. By the way, opportunity is really the problem statement that we flip it into positives in TheyDo. Because when you talk about the problem, you shouldn't start thinking about the solution. Otherwise, we probably will be restricted by some tunnel vision of certain solution that might not be the most effective and efficient, but if we don't understand the problem we solve, we probably will impose the solution that we're most familiar with or we love, and so on, that will not be addressing the real problem. So the problem owner and solution owner, they should be separate roles, usually in the best way, so they can collaborate to make the best decision for itself. And then the nested journeys, like Mark mentioned, when we think we want to dive deeper into certain steps and we need more details, instead of adding more steps to make the journey super long, a good way is to create nested journeys to contain these details so we can zoom in and zoom out across the different levels. In this way, you can also have multiple levels of your journeys in the framework. So you can, again, think about stakeholders on different levels. You can focus on different lanes on different levels of nested.
Nice.
There any question, Mark?
No. I think that's a pretty good overview, and it makes sense to start thinking about who is either responsible or interested in the information in that lane, or who can provide the information. Like you said, it requires a different mindset.
Exactly. And probably you will start wondering, okay, you showed me a good onboarding journey. You also showed me a good journey of I leave or offboarding journey.
Mhm.
But then how do we connect everything together? It doesn't look for me, it's the end-to-end experience. What
It's
can
not.
we do
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah. What should we do?
So the answer also lies in nested journey. So you can build journeys not only underneath a current journey. If you find your current journey is part of a bigger experience, you can also build a higher level journey to contain your current journey.
Do you
So
have an example?
I actually did that. I think I have this journey. So I have the member experience framework, then going through all the phases and steps for Mark's circle community, start from registration to onboarding to engage in member activities and post participation. And then from my offboarding journey, I find them relevant in these later phases and steps. So basically, I start that journey from active participation, because that's important to understand in the churn as well. And then we, of course, finalize in the post member reflection. And that can be exactly mapped into a higher level. So after the onboarding, actually, we need to start observing the offboarding experience. And this reflects exactly that. So the active participation is mapped under the engage in member activities. And then for the post participation, we have challenges and reassessment. We have membership decision, and also we have post membership reflection. So by mapping the phases and steps across the nested journeys, we're able to make sure we have not only this journey nested under the right place in the whole framework, but also we're able to ensure the data from the nested journey, meaning the insights mainly, and also the other elements are correctly mapped under the right steps of our nested journey.
So what I'm seeing here is you call this the member experience framework. This is the end-to-end journey. We have 4, 5 steps or phases here. And within the last 2 steps, you have connected the more detailed offboarding journey, and you have even selected which steps in the offboarding journey map onto which phases in the entire member lifecycle. Is that
actually the other way around?
Okay, tell me.
So the steps of this current journey are here. So I exchange knowledge, I reflect on my membership, are the steps in the current journey. But then these steps need to contain the phases of the nested journey. So it's the other way around.
Let's see if I understand this correctly, because I reflect on my membership. That is
a step. So it's not post participation phase.
So where is I reflect on my membership? Where is that a step?
It's here.
There we go.
It's
yes.
It just happened that we have only one step
exactly.
under that phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Makes a little sense.
Yeah. So once we have done this, we're able to see multiple things. We're able to see different bar charts of counts of building blocks in the nested journey. In this example, I showed the insights through their types. So you see, okay, the post participation obviously have more pain than my engagement phase, right? So you can already start drawing some conclusions. In addition, you're also able to, for example, have the experience lane. And now it's automatically generated.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because it's reading from the experience in the nested journey and generating a score for each of the step in the current journey. So like this, you have the data automatically rolling up.
Yeah, it's aggregated, it's rolled up data, it's summarized to some extent, and this allows you to zoom in and out, and depending on how much details you want to see, it depends on which zoom level you sort of engage with the journey. Is that correct?
Exactly. So that's why you see I have a little bit of different information here on this higher level membership framework, because you're usually having higher level stakeholders to look at this whole experience. In this case, it's Mark yourself, because you want to see how is my end-to-end member experience going while working in different parts of this whole life cycle. You want to see like how is my experience going on across the life cycle. You want to see at a glance how are my insights, opportunities, solutions doing. By the way, you're able to toggle this to the different building blocks, and then you see the different information. Here, you can also have multiple lanes of this. Some organizations, their stakeholders want to see, okay, I want to not only see insights, but I also want to see how my opportunities are going. So then you can actually have another bar chart focusing on opportunities and focusing on status. So then you see different information. So it's very high level information in this framework journey. Although you also have opportunities lane, these opportunities are usually on a higher level than the opportunities in your nested journey as well. For example, many companies have in the framework journey those company objectives as opportunities, and then they can be linked with the opportunities in the nested journey. So we are able to see how my general objectives are progressing based on the status of the linked opportunities underneath.
How many nested journey levels do you recommend we should have?
As few as possible in the beginning.
So, with one.
You can start with one, and a common practice is I like to, well, depending on your research as well. Remember in our previous episode, we discussed like you can have different data as the source of your first journey. So the reason why we have this I leave the community circle journey is because the data defines the scope of this journey in the beginning. And that's why we feel, okay, it's not enough to have one level because it's not covering the end-to-end life cycle, because we also have data about onboarding that is in another journey. In this case, you need at least two levels to cover the whole life cycle.
Yeah.
But if you have your research like globally across different life cycle stages, you can also have one journey nested underneath. So in this framework journey, you don't need to show all the details of your insights, but really focus on these high level elements.
So having, and I can imagine that this overview, what you're showing right now, could also be called member lifecycle. Instead of member experience framework, member lifecycle, or customer lifecycle, or patient or student lifecycle. And it's good to have that overview. And then the nested journey you would start with the journey that is related to your business challenge.
Exactly. Yeah. So then you know what is the big picture, where is my focus at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to also show you something, because we have the onboarding journey. We can actually add it right here. So I can search the onboarding journey and then drag it into this lane. And then we will immediately have more information in this journey. So the onboarding, let's see where it should start and end. So it starts from the welcome and orientation. So registration is not part of the onboarding, probably. So it is only under this onboarding phase. So now you see we should have a lot more information with the experience graph and also the summary lane. So we have
So just because you added the nested journey and you refreshed your member lifecycle, it's automatically going to aggregate the data from the nested journey or journeys into this member lifecycle overview.
Exactly.
Pretty cool.
This is called data roll up.
Yes.
And that's why it's so convenient to zoom in and zoom out and see different levels of information for different stakeholders. Yeah. Great. So another thing we probably see different from these journeys is we are seeing the insights and experience lane to represent the experience itself. But usually, like if you think about these journey maps you have seen before, a lot of them tend to focus on the activities and the story. What does my customer do
Yes.
in each of the step?
That is
in
how I
details.
started as well. That was my initial instinct to start adding those kinds of blocks to the journey.
Yeah, exactly. So why do we not have that lane? Because well, I also got a lot of questions from my customers. How can we show the different activities or different paths for my customers? And then my question is, what kind of details are useful for you to really push action? So let me give you an example. I think in this journey, for example, dealing with financial concerns. Here, from the insights, we see, okay, we have payment issue that might be from the payment method. And then we have affordability issue. So these are two very different pain points, right? And then if we tell a story about them, you will have thousands of story. Okay, my membership is paid by my company, and then I have to arrange an invoice from the company, but it's complicated. Or my company stop agreeing to pay. So I have affordability issue. And then if I'm a personal member, well, my credit card doesn't work anymore. I would like to pay by cash. Well, maybe not, but I can't, or I cannot afford it anymore. So it's really a lot of stories. But what is actionable for Mark from all these stories are probably these two insights. They have payment issue with the payment method. And then you can dive into the original source. What kind of payment issue is there? So if it's invoice as the biggest pain point, then you can focus on the opportunity and solution regarding invoices, right? You don't need to also learn about, they also pay by credit card. They also pay by cash. If there's no issues, no pain points, you don't need to focus on these details.
How would we know, Tingting, what the underlying pain point is?
You need to go into the insights and quote. For example, here you will see, okay, the affordability is about I can't afford membership. There is subscription management issue that's probably from the company or the invoicing, and then the cutting down expenses as well. So you will see like what are the actual issue that is impacting our members here, rather than writing a story with excessive details.
And adding to this, if you go into the details tab of this specific building block, this specific insight, AI will, based on these quotes, already probably have extracted the key issues, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So instead of having them as separate building blocks to tell the story, it actually allows you to have kind of a logic chain to trace back to the original source, what is a problem, and then give you a summarized building block or insight that you can focus on these generic areas of pain. That is much more actionable than focusing on a detailed story that you need to read.
I have a different question, but is there anything else you wanted to say about these stories and maybe alternative paths?
I think this is fine for now. So please go ahead with your question.
Well, for me at least, the obvious next question is you can map the existing experience In this case, I leave the community. That is actually based on data from my last 4 years. I know what people are doing. They have told me. We have research data. So this journey is grounded in actual facts and research data. Now, for the onboarding journey, of course, we do have an onboarding experience currently. It's just not looking the same as we want it to be. So some people might call it an as-is situation versus a to-be situation. How do we manage that inside TheyDo?
That is a very, very common question as well I get from the customers. So there are two ways to tackle this. One way is, my favorite way is to manage the as-is and to-be journey on different levels. So using the to-be to a high level. So if we look at the member life cycle, this could be your journey in aspiration. So the phases and steps are the life cycle you want to enable to your members. And one immediate observation is, yeah, this is on very high level. It's very generic. Why do I put my future or to-be journey so generic? The reason is your to-be journey is very much a vision. It's based on mainly assumptions, because a lot of to-be journey doesn't have the data to collect the actual experience. So it needs to be based on some vision. So the vision need to be higher level than very detailed, because otherwise it will always diverge from the reality, right? So using the to-be journey on a higher level, and then put your as-is research as nested journeys. Then you can really benefit from this rolling up of the data to understand the gap between your as-is and to-be, to understand the pains of as-is, to validate whether my to-be is towards the right direction. So you can use your as-is data to validate your to-be journey, and use your to-be journey to guide your as-is journeys. So then both of them become dynamic and live, and they can change as well.
That is
Does it make
approach.
sense?
Yeah, that is approach number one. Interesting. Not what I expected. So I'm curious what the second approach is.
Approach number two is, let's not separate the as-is and to-be journey. If you remember what we did in episode number 3, the scenario 2, we actually started from a journey that we expect, like we mapped internally. We want to enable the experience for our members. So the insights are assumptions, overwhelmingly, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're able to enrich our insights with the data as we get more and more data. So I have an interesting example. We have a new project in a company. They are traditionally providing the traditional vehicles, but now they're providing also EV into place. And then there are a lot of experiences like charging and so on that they didn't design at all for their customer. So they need to design now a journey with EV without real customer data. But then once they start running the business with this design, they're able to get more and more data flowing into this journey. So this journey become the as-is journey. And we can validate our future assumption with more and more data continuously. So we're able to adjust our own design and according to the emerging. So you can do the
Yeah.
same with your onboarding journey.
Which of these, when would you recommend approach number one, and when would you recommend approach number two?
You can definitely combine them. And I see most of the organizations combine them. I think you can start from the first approach, but then if you have some projects that you you don't have real time or real life data, you can combine it with.
Okay. I think in my case, the second approach, I don't know, intuitively feels more natural, not to split the as is and to be, and just treat the journey map as a sort of representation of the current reality and the aspiration for the future, and do testing, track progress. It becomes more of almost a project management tool in that sense. Like it's a living document, as you said, but I'm which as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, these two approaches, you can use them separately. You can also combine them. So there's no like fixed way of which one is better than the other.
Cool. We've talked almost an hour thinking about journey maps management, about lanes, phases, simplifying things, removing things, as is to be. How would you summarize our session today?
Yeah, I would summarize our session first. Still focus on the lanes, phases, and steps. So from lane point of view, start with essential lanes only. So that is the insights, opportunities, solutions to start with. And depending on which level you are in, you can add different summary lanes and you can add more granular insight solutions and so on. Always adjust the lanes according to the stakeholder needs. And then from the phases and steps, horizontal point of view, let's aim for maximum 10 to 12 steps per journey. And I actually wanted to also share a tip about that, but we discussed, let's not make the journey super long because otherwise everyone is lost and you can always contain more details in the nested journey. But then just to share a small tip, in TheyDo, you can find this zoom bar. And then if you select fit to screen, and if you can still read the journey and understand the journey, it means it's having a okay length. Of course, the better you can read it, the more concise. The more concise it is, the
People will
better you
start
can read
buying
it.
really large screens, Tingting. That is going to be that.
Yeah, exactly. But then you see, if we compare these two journeys, you can read this one much easier and you can digest the information much easier. So having a shorter journey also could pay off as well. So use this small trick to make sense and decide whether your journey is too long or is okay length. So that's really basically very, very practical suggestions I have for this session.
Yeah.
And then from a more abstract point of view, we need to understand signal versus noise, understand your takeaways, the signals from the story, which one is more important, than the visualizing every little detail of the story, because those would be noise. And then make the insights and focus on the insights that are actionable for future business actions, such as identify opportunity and solutions. That's it.
That's it. What I'm getting out of this is stick to 8 to 12 steps max and have 5 lanes and stick with that for as long as possible and try to sort of fit into that framework, unless you really come to the conclusion that you need something else. But otherwise, you're probably better off sticking to that framework. Tingting, is there anything else you feel we need to share before we wrap episode?
No, I think we are good with this. So hopefully you have learned about the structuring of the journeys and also structuring on different levels of nested journeys.
The only thing left to do in that case is what's coming up in the next one.
Yeah. So hopefully in today's episode, we have learned what else do we need in the journey and how should a journey look like to facilitate actions. And after today's episode, I hope you will start reviewing your existing journeys and refine the lanes, phases, and steps with your learning from this episode. And we are keen to hear your feedback. And then in the next episode, on the basis of this well-structured journey, we will zoom in to metrics, opportunities, and solutions finally, and discuss how to drive the business actions and impact through these building blocks.
All right, because we haven't zoomed into what is actually a solution, what is an opportunity, how do we define metrics. That's coming up in the next one in our journey to better communicate and use journey management. If you have any questions regarding what we have discussed here in this episode, leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you either on YouTube or Spotify, or you can find us on LinkedIn probably, and we'll maybe answer your questions in the next episode. Tingting, thanks so much for guiding us through episode number 5. I'm already excited and looking forward to number 6. So thanks again, and see you soon.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone. See you soon.